On the day I was giving birth, I was locked in the bedroom by my husband. I was in so much pain that I scratched bloodstains on the door panel. I knelt on the ground and begged him to let me go to the hospital. But my mother-in-law disagreed. My husband tried to persuade me, "Darling, bear with it a little longer." My mom asked a master to calculate. 8 o'clock tomorrow morning is a good time to give birth. It can bless our family to thrive. My mother-in-law sneered, "What are you being so affected about?" If she couldn't bear it, she would have jumped out of the window long ago. Later, due to the long delay, the child died in my womb. Opening my eyes again. The hairy crabs are desperately climbing up the edge of the pot. I look down at my bulging belly and reach out in disbelief. It's not an illusion. It's real. I am reborn. My husband Zachary's family is chatting in the living room. Melon seed shells and fruit peels are scattered all over the floor. My mother-in-law said that she had a backache and leg pain and couldn't help. My husband wanted to help but was stopped by my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law pulled my husband and surrounded my pregnant cousin, showing concern. I am left alone, with a big belly, busy in the kitchen for a long time. The range hood is broken. The strong smell of cooking fumes made me vomit 3 times in the toilet, but that family acted as if they didn't see it. In my previous life, Zachary persuaded me, "This is the first time our mom has come to our house. You must perform well and let her know that I married a virtuous wife." I was so stupid that I believed his sweet words. I was so tired that I had premature labor and was locked in the bedroom by him. After I died, I learned that my husband had won tens of millions in the lottery. The so-called cousin is not his relative at all. Instead, it is his mistress that my mother-in-law found for him from the village when I was pregnant. So he had the audacity to abandon me and my child. Why? Why don't the villains get punished while the good people have to leave early? Looking at the hairy crabs desperately climbing up in the hot oil pan, I slammed the lid on. The hot oil sizzled, and the hairy crabs slowly became silent. It's really God's will that I was reborn on the day before giving birth. If I can't deal with you guys, I will be sorry to King Yama. Pulling my thoughts back, the battle begins. Daughter. Hold on to the umbilical cord. Mom is going to take you on a wild ride. I called Zachary to the kitchen, neither too loud nor too soft. Honey, I'll go buy a bottle of vinegar. The hairy crabs in the pot are 200 yuan each. They're not cooked yet. Wait for me to come back before you eat, then go and come back quickly. Mom is still hungry. Taking advantage of their inattention, I picked up the cat and went out. As soon as I went out, there were hurried footsteps coming from inside the door. Sure enough, just like in my previous life, a group of people reincarnated as starving ghosts. Before I came back home, they had eaten up all the dishes on the table. But this time, the hairy crabs were not cooked at all. I turned on my phone's surveillance. As expected, my mother-in-law was cursing and gnawing on the hairy crabs with a big mouth. She casually threw the crab shells on the cashmere carpet worth tens of thousands of yuan. What's not cooked? She's just greedy. Still so greedy even when pregnant. I've lived to this age and haven't I eaten all good things? 200 yuan each. What a waste. Although my mother-in-law was talking like this, she didn't stop eating for a moment. A total of 8 hairy crabs were bought. My husband had 2, my cousin and my mother-in-law had 3 each. Not a single one was left. While eating, my mother-in-law tapped my husband again. I tell you, the one in Vivian's belly is the legitimate root of our Zachary family. The one in her belly, I could tell at a glance that it's a useless loser. Don't get your priorities wrong. Quickly get the money and the house. Women in charge. The house will collapse. Mom, keep your voice down. This house is not soundproof. I snorted. I reminded you. These hairy crabs are not cooked. The old witch ate so much. Don't delay your journey to the Western paradise. I turned off the surveillance and hurried to do something important. I ran to the lottery station downstairs and bought a lottery ticket exactly according to the lottery numbers of my previous life. The staff printed out the lottery ticket for me and said with a smile, "With such a big belly, you still come to buy lottery tickets. I also replied with a smile, my husband's family is all dead. I have to raise money to prepare for his funeral. Ignoring the strange expression on the staff's face, I took the lottery ticket and rushed out. I ran to the side of the road, took a taxi and went straight to the hospital. As soon as I arrived at the hospital, Zachary's call came. I sneered and directly blacklisted and turned off my phone. A bunch of scumbags. May you all be dragged to death. Just after 3 o'clock in the early morning, my dear daughter was born. When the nurse brought her to me, my tears came out immediately. In my previous life, my daughter died in the womb and we didn't even see each other. Now seeing her lying quietly in the nurse's arms, not crying or making a fuss. When I kissed her little face, she actually grinned. Oh, it's really rare. The little girl can smile as soon as she is born. Thank God, my daughter can be born smoothly in this life. I will definitely protect her. My parents are still on their way. I hired 2 hospital nurses at a high price to take care of my daughter for me. After the anesthetic wore off, the police were waiting by my bedside. Selena, someone has accused you of poisoning and murder. Uncle Policeman, I am wronged. I just gave birth. How could I have time? You can't wrong a good person just because of one-sided words. Suddenly, the door of the VIP ward was knocked open, and my mother-in-law and Zachary rushed in. If it weren't for the police stopping them, they would definitely drag me off the hospital bed and beat me up. Little bitch. You dared to poison the food? My mother-in-law cursed loudly. Zachary was even more excited. Selena. Mom just didn't help you cook. Is your resentment so great? I sneered, you say I poisoned. Then tell me what poison I put? Now it's a society ruled by law. Everything needs evidence. Uncle Policeman, I want to sue them for slander. My mother-in-law's eyes were red. You deliberately didn't cook the hairy crabs well. Isn't that harming us? You quickly give me the money for calling an ambulance and hospitalization fees, as well as Vivian's surgical fees and nutrition fees. Just transfer 200,000 yuan to me. The policeman frowned as he listened. What's going on exactly? Uncle Policeman, this is the first time my mother-in-law has come to the city to celebrate a festival. I cooked a table of dishes with a big belly. In the end, there was no vinegar left. I thought that hairy crabs are not delicious without vinegar. I specifically told my husband that the hairy crabs were not cooked. But before I could buy vinegar back, they ate like hungry ghosts reincarnated. I also want to go back. But as a result, I gave premature birth on the roadside due to exhaustion. This is really not my fault. I pretended to be sad. The policeman and the nurse glared at my mother-in-law and Zachary at the same time. My mother-in-law shouted, "You're lying. You did it on purpose. None of us heard this sentence from you." I took out my phone unhurriedly and pulled up last night's surveillance footage. Uncle Policeman, I have evidence. After the policeman watched the surveillance footage, he indeed saw me clearly tell Zachary that the hairy crabs were not cooked, but Zachary didn't take it seriously at all. Later, there was an unexpected surprise. The surveillance footage actually captured that after my mother-in-law went to the toilet, Zachary and Vivian hugged and kissed inseparably. If my mother-in-law hadn't come out, Zachary's hand would have reached into Vivian's skirt. Zachary's face completely changed. He shouted, "You actually installed surveillance cameras at home." I sneered, "If I didn't install surveillance cameras, how would I know you have the habit of kissing your cousin?" My mother-in-law rushed up to make a scene but was stopped by the policeman. She cursed, "You have no ability to keep a man. Giving birth to a money-losing thing. It's your good fortune that my son didn't divorce you." "Auntie. What era is it now? Having a boy or a girl is the same," the policeman advised helplessly. The nurse glared at my mother-in-law disapprovingly. "I've never seen a mother-in-law like you. When your daughter-in-law gives birth, you serve by the side of the mistress." Little bitch. What are you talking about? See if I don't beat you to death. My mother-in-law reached out to hit the nurse. As a result, the policeman forcefully blocked the slap. My mother-in-law was directly taken away by the policeman for assaulting a police officer. But the process of taking her away was extremely difficult. There were several more scratches on the policeman's face. Only I and Zachary were left in the room. Zachary shamelessly stretched out his hand to me. Give Vivian 200,000 yuan as compensation for her. She gave birth to a son for the Zachary family. I must be responsible for her. I looked at Zachary amusedly. With your shameless look, I thought Vivian was pregnant with my son. Can't control that thing down there? Do you want me to cut it off for you? Since you came to the ward, you haven't asked about the situation of me and my daughter at all. Cheating during pregnancy and having a child. Zachary, if I don't make you stay in prison until you rot, I'll be sorry to King Yama. Do you have evidence? Zachary sneered. Selena, if you dare to make a fuss at the police station, do you believe that I will make you unable to live in Jiangbei? You turned against your family for me. Now your parents don't even know where you are. Don't expect your parents to support you. And for your daughter, you don't have a job. The court won't award your daughter to you. You'd better swallow this dumb loss. When Vivian is discharged from the hospital, you pay for her to book the best confinement center. Zachary laughed wildly. But before he could finish laughing, he was punched by my dad and lost 2 teeth. Zachary didn't know. Before my dad retired from society, he was a boxing coach. Later, he met my mom and gradually settled down. The two got married. If it weren't for Zachary PUAing me and making me marry into Jiangbei against my parents' wishes, he would definitely not dare to bully me like this. Behind my dad stood 4 burly men in black, all wearing sunglasses, extremely intimidating. My dad directly grabbed Zachary's collar with a fierce look on his face and lifted him up like an eagle lifting a chick. Listen carefully to me. Divorce my daughter immediately. Otherwise, I'll tear you apart. After saying that, he threw Zachary out like throwing trash. I silently put away my phone and saved the recording. Alas, another little trick to send Zachary to prison to step on the sewing machine. After driving away Zachary, seeing my weak appearance on the bed, my parents couldn't bear to scold me. Mom looked at me with heartache and fed me pigeon soup. Dad was busy looking through the dictionary to name my dear daughter. After looking through the dictionary for a long time, he finally named her Sienna, and her nickname, Suki. Looking at Suki, Dad burst into tears on the spot. I also felt extremely uncomfortable. Since I had a natural birth and Vivian was premature, I was discharged from the hospital earlier than her. When I was discharged, Dad carried me all the way to the car. I was tightly wrapped in clothes and didn't catch a single gust of wind. We drove all the way to the best confinement center in Jiangbei. Auntie Cheryl, Mom's best friend, is the owner of the confinement center and directly upgraded me to a VIP room. After living comfortably in the confinement center for a few days, Zachary angrily showed up again. As expected, because a few days ago, I had already terminated the lease of the house I lived in before. Right. Not sold. But terminated the lease. The landlord is my dad. Although Dad was extremely angry back then, he still loved me dearly. He bought a house with 3 bedrooms and 2 living rooms in the center of Jiangbei with a large sum of money. Then he entrusted a friend to rent it to me at a low price. At that time, because I had a big fight with my family and refused to accept financial support from home, I didn't have a penny in my pocket. A friend said there was an idle house in Jiangbei and let me move in first. I explained to Zachary, but Zachary never believed it, so he arrogantly classified the house as his private property. Every time he returned to the village, he boasted that he had a house in the city center, and his mother-in-law was also very proud. Unexpectedly, now that Vivian was discharged from the hospital, they couldn't enter the house. Zachary lost face and was naturally furious. Selena, you dare to sell the house? You little bitch. When the men in the family are not around, you dare to make decisions? Where's the money from selling the house? Hand it over quickly. Mother-in-law was administratively detained for 7 days and lost a large circle. The dark circles under her eyes showed that she didn't have a good time in there. At this moment, she wished she could rush forward and tear me apart. But with 4 bodyguards here, the 2 of them couldn't even touch me. Vivian was holding the child alone, looking greedily at the furnishings in my room. I chose not to talk to the trash and decisively called the police. The two policemen who came were the same ones as before. A policeman frowned when he passed by Vivian. He asked, "Why is it you?" Vivian dodged her eyes and took a few steps back, stammering and not daring to speak. The policeman didn't ask any more. And I gave Dad a look. The two of us exchanged glances. Dad decisively turned around and arranged for people under him to check Vivian's background. When Zachary saw the police, it was as if he saw a life-saving straw. He grabbed the policeman's arm and shouted, "Comrade policeman, she secretly transferred the joint property of the husband and wife while our whole family was in the hospital." "Joint property of husband and wife?" I sneered. I took out the rental contract from my bag. "Zachary, after living in someone else's house for a long time, do you really think the house is yours?" Looking at the glaring words, rental, Zachary's eyes turned red. "Your family is so rich. Would they let you rent a house? What does my dad being rich have to do with me? Could it be that you are with me because my dad is rich?" I pretended to be wronged. The pregnant women onlookers all cast unfriendly glances at Zachary. He stuck out his neck and questioned, "I don't believe it. Comrade policeman, I demand to see the real estate certificate. I'm not the homeowner. Where can I find the real estate certificate for you?" I didn't spoil him at all. Zachary glared at me firmly. The policeman also said that it was not within their scope of duties. If there was a marriage dispute, it was recommended to file for divorce directly. Zachary angrily shouted at the policeman, "What kind of policeman are you? You can't even handle such a small matter well. Believe it or not, I'll complain about you." The policeman's face instantly became stern. Dad was furious and directly picked up Zachary. 2 slaps were directly slapped on his face, and the bright red slap marks instantly appeared. "Scum! Do you know how to respect the police uncle? The police uncle dare not touch you, but I dare. If you dare to complain, I'll make you never see tomorrow's sun." Dad threw Zachary aside and took out the real estate certificate from his pocket. "Don't you want to see the real estate certificate? I'll show it to you." When Zachary saw the red real estate certificate, he immediately snatched it like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. Seeing Dad's name on the real estate certificate, he immediately beamed with joy. "See? I said the house, surely it's not rented, right?" Everyone looked at Zachary as if he were an idiot. "You look carefully. This is my name on it, not my daughter's." Dad patted Zachary's face with the real estate certificate. "When you die, this house will belong to Selena, right? I tell you, Selena, if you want a divorce, you must transfer the house to me. Otherwise, I will never divorce you even if you beat me to death." "That's right. Your family has no sons. The family property belongs to my son." "Oh, so you got married to me just to inherit all my family's property?" Seeing that I didn't speak, Zachary became even more arrogant. He glanced disdainfully at Suki in the swaddle and snorted coldly, "And this money-losing thing. Originally, she is not qualified to be on the household registration book of the Zachary family. You transfer another 500,000 to me, and I can consider it." I sneered. "Do you really think the police uncle is for decoration? Since you called the police, it saves me a phone call fee. Comrade policeman, I want to sue him for extortion." Zachary's face turned pale. He should have forgotten that there were still policemen here, and they were invited by him personally. Now his words are all recorded by the law enforcement recorder and are directly presented as evidence in court. Zachary can't deny it even if he wants to. Mother-in-law was invited to the police station for tea again. This time, her son also went with her. Before leaving, I called out to Zachary. "My family's Suki was born after her father died. She takes my surname. Your Zachary family is not blessed enough to deserve my Suki. If you have the ability, don't divorce me and let the illegitimate child in Vivian's belly be an unregistered person." Vivian gave me a resentful look and then left in a hurry with Zachary. I thought there would be a few days of peace, but unexpectedly, I ran into Vivian again at the maternity center. Vivian held her head high, full of arrogance. "Don't think that only you can stay at the maternity center. I can too. If you are so idle, you might as well think quickly about how to legalize the illegitimate child. I put my arms around my chest and examined Vivian. You are so unhurried. Could it be that this child is not Zachary's? A trace of panic flashed in Vivian's eyes. She shouted loudly, "What are you talking nonsense about? Just because you can't give birth to a son, you casually suspect others. Selena. You are so vicious." Zachary grabbed my arm, making my arm ache. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Vivian has made contributions to the Zachary family. Your belly is useless. Giving birth to a loser and still daring to yell at Vivian?" I gritted my teeth and shook off Zachary's hand and gave Zachary a hard slap. Zachary covered his left face and was stunned for a long time. A clear palm print emerged. "Selena. You dare to hit me?" I raised my hand and slapped him again, making my right hand numb. Zachary looked at me in disbelief. "Don't you not believe me? I'll let you confirm it again." My eyes were icy and terrifying, like an evil spirit crawling out of hell. "Zachary, I warn you. If I hear the words 'loser' from your mouth again, I'll send you to hell." Seeing that I was not to be trifled with, Zachary sheepishly pulled Vivian and left. Back in the room, my dad had already returned. When he saw that I was so angry that my chest was heaving up and down, he immediately stood up and wanted to go and settle scores with Zachary. I quickly grabbed my dad and persuaded, "Don't cause trouble for Auntie Cheryl. Auntie Cheryl is Mom's best friend, but we can't delay her making money. That can't be so cheap for him. By the way, Dad, how is the matter I asked you to investigate?" Only then did Dad remember. He took out a file bag and handed it to me. I read it carefully. As expected. There is a big problem with this Vivian. Before Vivian returned to the village, she worked at a footbath shop. And that footbath shop secretly engaged in that kind of business. It was raided by the police a year ago. That's why the police recognized Vivian. It is said that after Vivian was detained, she was bailed out by a man. She left with that man and did not return to the village. When she returned to the village again, she was already pregnant. Seeing Zachary and mother-in-law spreading everywhere in the village that they had a luxury house in Jiangbei, Vivian had some ulterior motives. She began to please her mother-in-law and be humble and submissive. She often bought things for her mother-in-law. Mother-in-law was also quite receptive to this. Taking advantage of my pregnancy, Zachary and Vivian lived together. Zachary lived in his hometown for 2 months. After 2 months, Vivian was pregnant. If it weren't for the accident with the hairy crabs, Vivian should have had the same due date as me. So she originally wanted to blame this accident on me so that Zachary would divorce me. As long as no one discovers this clue, everything will go as Vivian wishes. I put away the file bag, full of hatred. "Dad, have you found the person?" "Found. Everything is proceeding according to plan." A few days later, I saw a man enter Vivian's room. Immediately, there was a burst of intense crying from the room. Auntie Cheryl sent me the surveillance photos. Vivian cried and threw herself into the man's arms. The man hugged her tightly, looking distressed. I snorted and pulled Zachary out of the blacklist in my address book. "I sent the surveillance photos just now to Zachary." Zachary immediately sent a question mark. "It seems that this son is really not your seed. Wearing a green hat by others and raising someone else's son for them. Zachary, you are so pitiful." "Selena. Vivian has had an amniocentesis. That is my son." I continued to provoke him. "Well, if you can prove that it is your son, I will persuade Dad to give you the house." "What is a house?" "Vivian won 5 million in the lottery. But since you want to give me a house, I have no reason to refuse. In 3 days, ask the old man to send the property ownership certificate to my room." It turns out that Vivian won 5 million in the lottery. But compared to my 20 million, it is still insignificant. Whether she can keep this 5 million in the end is another matter. I sneered. The fish has taken the bait. I could have imagined that Vivian would be anxious, but I just didn't expect Vivian to be so anxious. That night, she actually sneaked into my room in the dark. It seems that the child is really not Zachary's. Zachary is in a hurry to get a house and is urging Vivian to take a paternity test. But the son is not Zachary's at all. If the test continues, Zachary will only find out. That's why Vivian came over and wanted to take a few strands of Suki's hair. I quietly called the police. Just as Vivian was about to cut Suki's hair with scissors, suddenly, the lights came on brightly. I grabbed Vivian's hand. The police opened the door and entered. Vivian panicked immediately. "Comrade policeman," I called the police. She was just holding scissors and about to hurt my daughter. When Vivian saw the police, she panicked. The scissors fell out of her hand. "No. I didn't." Vivian hurriedly denied. "Then what are you doing in my room?" I questioned. The policeman turned on the law enforcement recorder. Zachary also came over upon hearing the commotion. Vivian seemed to see a backer and immediately hid behind Zachary. "What's going on?" the policeman asked. I opened the video in the photo album, which clearly showed Vivian about to cut Suki's hair. Vivian looked aggrieved and argued, "Brother Zachary, during the day you said you wanted to take a paternity test. I just want her to take one too. In case there is a problem with the result, you can also have an advantage in the divorce agreement. I heard the doctor say that Selena gave birth before her due date, and every time she had a prenatal checkup, she didn't let you accompany her. Maybe there was some other man by her side." Zachary frowned and turned to me. "Vivian meant well. Don't be so suspicious." Even at this moment, I still couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness. I pretended to be aggrieved, and tears streamed down. "Zachary, didn't I mention asking you to take me to prenatal checkups? You said you were too busy with work and refused me every time. I understood you. Does this also become a reason for you to suspect me? And you cheated on me during pregnancy. Loyalty is the bottom line of marriage. Cheating during pregnancy is an even bigger taboo." The pregnant women around immediately started chatting and reproached Zachary and Vivian for being shameless. Zachary's face looked very bad. Vivian still wanted to say something, but Zachary stopped her. Since Suki didn't suffer any substantial harm and Vivian's attempted intentional injury didn't succeed, the policeman warned Vivian and left. Vivian gave me a fierce look. "Selena, don't be complacent." I picked up Suki, who had just woken up, and looked at Vivian with disdain. "You'd better worry about yourself first. Trash." In these 3 days, I saw that man enter Vivian's room several times while Zachary was out. Before Zachary came back, the man hurried away again. 3 days later, Zachary put the paternity test and divorce agreement in front of me. Looking at the number 99.99% on the paternity test document, I sneered inwardly. Vivian is really quite capable. No, it's that man who is capable. Selena, it's not that I'm bullying you. If your belly is not up to par, don't blame me for bullying you. I've already drafted the divorce agreement. Sign it. The agreement stated that I get 3/10 of the savings and he gets 7/10. The house also belongs to Zachary. This is really too much. If you want to give the daughter to you. I don't want her. Zachary quickly corrected himself. The house can be given to you, but the savings must all be given to me. Zachary frowned, then suddenly relaxed. Then he readily agreed. Okay, the savings are all yours. Anyway, I'll have money soon. I don't care about this 100,000 or so. 100,000? I sneered inwardly. It's 30 million. Zachary rushed to revise the divorce agreement. I signed it immediately without hesitation. There is still a 1-month cooling off period for divorce. I am waiting for things to slowly ferment and also waiting for an opportunity. After leaving the confinement period, I took Suki outside to bask in the sun. Suki was too full and suddenly vomited all over me. I didn't have time to change clothes. A white handkerchief was handed over. A clean face came into view. The boy was carrying a big school bag and looked tired. Sister, use this. I returned a smile and took the handkerchief to wipe off the milk stains on my body. Suki, who was originally drowsy, opened her eyes wide and looked at the boy and grinned. Sister, can I hold her? The boy looked sincere. I readily nodded, sure. The boy carefully took Suki from my arms and held Suki like I did. Suki didn't cry or make a fuss and obediently nestled in the boy's body. The boy's tears instantly fell. "What's wrong? What happened?" I hurriedly asked. The boy dried his tears and gave Suki back to me. "My name is Xantha. I just graduated. I wanted a new energy, but no one believes I can succeed. Without getting investment, my team can only disband." Suki actually reached out and grabbed Xantha's hand. I was a little surprised. "Does Suki want me to invest? I am now worth millions. Investing a few million is still no problem." I looked at Suki's clear big eyes and asked uncertainly, "Suki, if you want mom to invest, smile again." Suki immediately grinned. Xantha was also stunned. A 1-month-old baby actually smiled. "Then I'll trust my daughter once and you once." Without hesitation, I finalized the investment intention with Xantha. After adding contact information, Xantha sent me the address of his company and welcomed me to visit at any time. Vivian was dressed in jewels and luxury brands, carrying a Hermes bag on her arm. As soon as she saw me, she sneered, "You can't deceive me. At least find a rich person to deceive. She has just divorced and doesn't have a penny in her pocket." I picked up Suki and asked Xantha, "Xantha, how much money do you need?" "About 5 million. Xantha looked at me and was also unsure. I directly signed the letter of intent for the contract. "I'll invest 10 million. The money will be in the account tomorrow." "10 million? Vivian laughed out loud. "Selena, I advise you. Don't end up losing all your money. Don't come to me for money again when you can't afford to raise your daughter." "My money is all for my son." I ignored Vivian. There's no need to waste time talking to such rubbish. I just waited to see their downfall. 10. A month later, I successfully got the divorce certificate. Zachary looked smug. "Now that the divorce is finalized, quickly ask the old man to handle the property transfer. If you could have endured it a bit at the beginning, maybe I wouldn't have divorced you. Selena, you just don't have the fortune to live a good life." I put away the divorce certificate and snorted coldly. "Zachary, should I give you a pair of silver handcuffs first?" "Selena, you're just jealous because you can't have it." Zachary was still talking to himself. 2 policemen walked in from the gate. I unhurriedly took out a paternity test and a birth certificate from my bag. The names of the parents written on the certificate are Zachary and Vivian. "Comrade policeman, I want to report my ex-husband for bigamy." The 2 policemen who came were still the same ones as before. When they saw us, they immediately understood what had happened. Zachary panicked. He didn't expect that the paternity test book he gave me was directly used as evidence by me. The policeman immediately showed the silver handcuffs. "Mr. Young, come with us again." Zachary glared at me hatefully and said sternly, "Selena, you're so ruthless. If I go in, your daughter will have a criminal father." I pursed my lips, was silent for a moment, and replied, "Her father died as soon as she was born. Suki only has a mother." Zachary was taken away. The police found Vivian in Auntie Cheryl's confinement center again. To prevent the 2 from escaping, I applied for coercive measures. Now that we had completely torn our faces apart, I was not afraid of anything. Unexpectedly, before Zachary could counterattack, my former mother-in-law started making a scene. When I arrived, she was standing on the roof of Auntie Cheryl's confinement center, crying and shouting that she wanted to jump off the building. There were already several circles of people gathered downstairs. "Selena, if you dare let my son go to jail, I'll jump down from here. The little whore who can't give birth to a son. Vivian is better than you. She carried on the family line for our Zachary family. She is a hero of the Zachary family. Little whore. I'll make you infamous forever." Saying that, the mother-in-law was about to jump down. The police pushed through the crowd and saw me again. Their heads instantly grew a size. "Why is it you again?" I waved my hand. "They all want to court death. I can't help it." "Isn't that your mother-in-law? Go up and persuade her. I'm afraid that if I say something, she'll have a cerebral infarction and fall down." "Will I be responsible?" The policeman was also speechless. The mother-in-law was making a big fuss upstairs and was forcing me to withdraw the lawsuit. To not make Auntie Cheryl embarrassed and also to reduce the headache of the policeman, I decisively booked a bus with a red banner pasted on the body. Mother-in-law is a pimp, husband is a scumbag. There was also a loudspeaker installed on the top of the bus, playing the manuscript I wrote myself in a loop. The sound was extremely loud to ensure that people within a 10-mile radius could hear it. I picked up the loudspeaker and shouted towards the roof. "Auntie, if you don't come down soon, the bus will drive to our hometown. At that time, if you can't enter the ancestral hall, or if the clan leader thinks it's disgraceful and kicks your family out of the family tree, don't blame me. In the village, if you can't enter the ancestral hall or be removed from the family tree, that's a huge matter. If you die and go to the underworld, you will have even less face to see your ancestors." The mother-in-law was so anxious that her eyes were blurred and her limbs suddenly became weak. She was just about to come down from the roof to stop the bus when unexpectedly her foot was tripped by a cable. She actually fell directly from the 5th floor. Although there were safety airbags laid by firefighters downstairs, if the building is higher than the 5th floor, it's of no use. The mother-in-law directly fell and became half paralyzed. I smiled at the policeman. "Uncle Policeman, look, I did my best." The two policemen looked at me and their faces darkened. Although the mother-in-law jumped off the building, the rented bus can't be wasted. I still gave the driver the address and let him go to Zachary's hometown and play it in a loop for 2 days. According to the driver's feedback, the clan leader was so angry that he fainted directly. Vivian was used to a life of luxury and couldn't stand the days in detention. She actually directly exposed that the paternity test was false and the son was not Zachary's at all. So she is not considered guilty of bigamy. It can only be considered moral infidelity. She paid her own money and entrusted the police station to do a new paternity test. The result was really as Vivian said. The charge of bigamy was not established and Zachary and Vivian were released. As a result, Zachary was so angry that he beat Vivian in front of the police station. And he went in again for intentional injury. The man before had fooled Vivian into investing in a sunset project. Perhaps she was fooled stupidly, or perhaps she couldn't forget her old love. Vivian invested all her money in it, including Zachary's money. That was Zachary's marital property transferred. But the man took the money and ran away while they were in prison. The son is gone, the biological mother is paralyzed, the job is gone, and maybe I can't even go back to my hometown. Now, Zachary is truly left with nothing. However, I think it's far from enough. 17 Zachary shamelessly came to seek reconciliation. He used his only money to buy milk powder and toys to see his daughter. I mercilessly shut him out. He looked at my luxury mansion with greed and said shamelessly, "Wife, I was wrong before, but a daughter can't be without a father. Our mom is still lying in the hospital. You can't just leave her to die." The $30 million in prize money has already been credited to my account. I hired a bank manager to make an investment plan. Apart from the money invested in Xantha, the rest has all been put into financial management. Now I can do anything I like with Suki. Sorry, sir. Miss Selena has already called the police. If you don't leave soon, we will take coercive measures. Zachary is already terrified of being detained. When he sees the police, he is like a mouse seeing a cat. Reluctantly, he glances at the door a few times and leaves resentfully. I decisively hired 2 bodyguards, one to protect me and one to protect Suki. I deliberately emphasized to the bodyguards that they must pay special attention to Zachary and Vivian. But still, there was a slip-up. Suki was kidnapped. That night I received a call from Zachary. "Selena, if you still want to see your daughter, transfer 20 million to my account. I heard you won 30 million. Isn't asking for 20 million not too much? Zachary, are you still human? Suki is only 1 year old. If she gets hurt even a little bit, I'll take your life." I was so angry that my hands were shaking. Suki is the daughter I gave birth to with great difficulty. She is the precious daughter I exchanged with 2 lifetimes of my life. Zachary is courting death. It's you who are too cold-blooded. Selena. If you agreed to get back together, would this kind of thing still happen? In the final analysis, it's your own fault. I could hear Suki's crying on the phone. My heart was deeply stung. The police came quietly. He shushed me. Aren't you afraid of being punished by the law? I am her father. She is my daughter. I just took her out to play. The police can control everything, but can they control a father taking his daughter out? Selena, I have no way out. The police quickly located Zachary's position through the phone. Selena, you have 1 day to transfer the money to my account. If I don't see the money, I can't say what will happen to this loser. The phone hung up. The police nodded at me. They had located Zachary's position, but I still didn't dare to relax even a little bit. A few hours later, the police knocked on my door. Suki's face was flushed and she had a fever. Zachary must have taken her to a damp and cold place. I immediately called the family doctor and gave Suki an injection. Only then did her high fever subside. Before kidnapping your daughter, he was already a fugitive. He killed Vivian. There must have been a fierce argument between them. The weapon was a machete. He had a gun and still tried to attack the police. He was shot dead on the spot. It was as if a big rock had been removed from my chest. After a long time, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Zachary got what he deserved. The police put a file bag in front of me and asked, however, there is still one thing I don't understand. Why did Zach transfer $3 million to your account? Miss Selena, please explain. Zach is Vivian's old lover. My eyes slowly became clear and calm. Comrade policeman, I just provided a piece of information to Zach. As for why he transferred the money, you should ask Zach. I found Zach. I also told him that Vivian is no longer what she used to be. She not only hooked up with a rich man but also won $5 million in the lottery. But it wasn't me who asked him to abscond with the money. The sins committed by Zachary and Vivian can't be blamed on me. As long as Zach can still get out of prison, the conditions I promised him before are enough for him to live a comfortable life for the rest of his life. Zach is a smart person. He knows how to choose. The police had no evidence, and this matter gradually subsided. In the next few years, Xantha's new energy business made great progress. With my push, it was successfully listed, and I also became the behind-the-scenes big boss of Cyclone Energy. My financial resources are increasing day by day, but I don't want to be involved in business operations. I just want to be a behind-the-scenes investor. In this life, I just want to accompany Suki and my parents. Suki likes traveling and delicious food, so I take her to tour the mountains and rivers of China. As long as Suki likes it, I will accompany her to do it. The $3 million that Zach gave me, I invested it all in the hospital. It can be regarded as the convalescence expenses for Zachary's mother. I don't want her to be relieved so soon. I am still young and have plenty of time to slowly wear her down. End.